There's a bird in Australia that can perfectly mimic chainsaws, car alarms, and rifle shots. Scientists thought they had it figured out. It's how males show off to females. Then they noticed something nobody expected. The males were using these sound signs during mating itself, specifically to deceive females into staying. And then there's the drongo in Africa, a bird that gets nearly a quarter of its daily food by faking alarm calls to scare other animals away from their meals. Pay attention to this next detail, because it explains everything. When the targets stop falling for it, the drongo switches species. It mimics up to 51 different alarm calls until it finds one that works. These birds aren't copying for fun, they're running cons. To get why this matters, you have to back up and ask the more basic question first. Why do any birds mimic at all? For a long time, the cleanest answer pointed at sex. In a male northern mockingbird perched on a fence post in the American suburbs, the song you hear isn't just one song. It's a catalog. A single male can stitch together imitations of dozens of other species, threading them into his own performance, and females favor the ones with the biggest repertoires. More songs in the library, more interest from the females listening from the brush. The same pattern shows up in satin bowerbirds in eastern Australia. Male bowerbirds build these little stage sets on the forest floor, decorating them with blue feathers and bottle caps, and then they sing for visiting females. Researchers found that two things independently predicted mating success: the accuracy of their mimicry and the number of species they could imitate. Being a good copycat wasn't a side trick. It was the whole audition. Then there's the European starling. The small dark bird raiding feeders in city can fold the songs of up to 20 different species into its own jumble of whistles and clicks. Young starlings learn novel sounds with fewer than 10 exposures, which is wildly fast for a vocal learner. In lab tests, they can even tell apart complex patterns like ababab versus abab, the kind of abstract sequence work people usually associate with primates. The starling on the wire isn't just noisy. It's running a tiny memory system most animals can't match. So the textbook answer for years was simple. Birds mimic because mimicry advertises a healthy brain, a good memory, and time to spare. A male that can copy 15 species clearly didn't spend his summer dodging predators and starving. He had bandwidth. Females treat that bandwidth as a billboard. This is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. Back in Australia, the superb lyrebird is the star of the show. He's about the size of a pheasant, and a vocal organ called a syrinx that is the most complex of any songbird in the world. He can copy more than 20 other bird species cleanly. He can also imitate chainsaws from logging crews working the eucalyptus forests, the clicks of camera shutters from tourists in the national parks, rifle shots, car engines, even the beeps of construction sites. The catalog is staggering. For decades, the assumption matched the mockingbird story: bigger repertoire, better mate. Then field biologists watching wild lyrebirds during courtship noticed something off. The males were producing a specific blend of sounds in the middle of mating itself. Not before, when they were displaying on their little earth mounds. During. And the sounds weren't random pretty bird songs. They were mimicked alarm calls. The kind of noisy cluster a flock makes when a hawk is circling overhead. In other words, when a female lyrebird walked away or tried to leave, the male would fire off a fake alarm. The signal that says danger, freeze, hide. And the female hearing it would stop. The mating would continue. Researchers logged this happening over and over in different males across multiple breeding seasons. It wasn't a glitch, it was a strategy. Now the lyrebird could have stopped at showing off his big Volksang catalog. He didn't. He layered in a second skill on top of it. He learned to manipulate the listener. The same vocal system that started as a billboard for female attention had evolved a second, sneakier job. The billboard could also be a trap. If you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. There's more stories like this on the channel about the strange ways animals outsmart each other. The female lyrebird isn't naive in all this either. By the way, females have been recorded doing their own mimicking, especially when defending their nests. A female sitting on eggs will produce predator alarm calls of her own to scare off threats. So the same trick the male is using to deceive her is one she also has in her own toolkit, just aimed at different targets. The whole species is running an arms race and fake noises against each other and against the rest of the forest. But for raw audacity, the prize goes to a much smaller bird with much bigger problems. In the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa, on the dry red sand between scrub bushes, it's a sleek black bird about the size of a robin with a forked tail and a sharp eye. The drongo follows groups of meerkats and pied babblers as they forage. When one of those animals digs a fat, juicy grub or a lizard, the drongo's mouth waters. Here's what makes the drongo terrifying. He has his own alarm call, the call that says raptor incoming, scatter. He can use that on the meerkats. Sometimes they fall for it, drop the food, sprint for cover, and the drongo swoops in and grabs the meal. But meerkats aren't stupid. After hearing the same false alarm a few times, they start ignoring it. So the drongo does something almost no other animal in the bush can do. He switches voices. The drongo has been documented mimicking up to 51 different alarm calls from various species in his neighborhood. Pied babbler alarms, meerkat alarms. Other birds. When the meerkats stop trusting his drongo voice, he opens his repertoire and tries one of theirs. He's literally running an A/B test on the savannah, cycling through identities until he finds one the target hasn't built up immunity to yet. National Geographic field studies estimate the drongo gets close to 23% of his daily food from these false alarm robberies. Almost a quarter of his diet is stolen by deception. So zoom back out for a second. You have one bird in Australia using mimicry as a sexual lie, faking danger during mating to keep his partner from leaving. You have another bird in Africa using mimicry as a daily food source, faking danger to rob other animals of lunch. And underneath both, you have starlings memorizing 20 other songs in a city park, bowerbirds sweating accuracy in their little forest stages, and mockingbirds stacking dozens of voices on a suburban fence post. What started as a story about boys impressing girls with prettier songs turned into something stranger and a lot more interesting. Bird mimicry isn't just decoration. In some species, it's a tool for cheating, robbing, and lying, used in real time against living listeners who are doing their best to figure out what's true. The forest isn't full of pure music. It's full of liars with very, very good ears. And the ones we know about are only the ones we've caught so far. There are roughly 10,000 bird species in the world, and most of them have never had a field biologist crouched next to them with a microphone for a full breeding season. The drongo in the Kalahari was just doing what drongos always do. People just had to sit and watch long enough to notice the con. If you found this interesting, there's more stories like this on the channel. Stay curious.